Well, what a night. Round one of the 2025 NFL Draft was. The Chiefs got a guy that a lot of people were hoping they could potentially be able to get at the end of the first round. They just weren't sure if he was still going to be there. And they also weren't sure, me included, if his injury was going to be a concern or not. Before we get there, it is worth noting that the Chiefs took their first offensive tackle in the first round since Eric Fisher in 2013, which is pretty crazy, all things considered. When you win, you're in the back end of all these rounds after Andy Reid comes to town. It's harder to get true tackle talent, and that is what the Chiefs hope that they did tonight. Before we get there, we'll definitely talk about it, but a run on offensive tackles went pretty early in the draft, and honestly, I wasn't sure if Simmons would even be available. Spoiler alert, yes, they got Josh Simmons, the left tackle out of Ohio State, but Will Campbell, Armand Mimbu, and Kelvin Banks Jr. all went in the top 10, so I was definitely not sure what things would look like at the end of the round. Then, both tight ends went top 14, the first time a second tight end has gone that early ever, but then some of the top D linemen were gone pretty quickly as well. Kenneth Grant, he went 13th. Walter Nolan, 16th. Shamar Stewart, 17th. And the Falcons traded way up from 46 to 26 to get defensive end James Pierce Jr. Well, once this happened, I knew the Texans needed a tackle, but they were now out of round one, and both Josh Conerly Jr., the left tackle out of Oregon, and Josh Simmons were still available. So I thought the Chiefs would be able to snag one of them if they really wanted. The Commanders then scooped Josh Conerly Jr. up at pick 29, which was a little surprising, but they did need some tackle help there, and I do wonder if KC had the opportunity to choose between both of those guys, Josh Conerly Jr. and Josh Simmons, what their choice would have actually been. We will obviously never know, but I will say something I did not see coming was the Chiefs trading back just one spot, but trading back with the Philadelphia Eagles. They moved up one spot from 32 to 31 to get linebacker Jahad Campbell. And I found this interesting. When the Eagles called Veach to inquire about trading up, Veach asked their GM, Howie Roseman, if the guy they wanted to trade up for played on offense or defense. He said, hey, we don't need to know the player's name. Just does he play on the offensive side of the ball or defense? And Howie said, defense, they trusted his word. And would you look at that, it ended up working out. Once they said defense, they were fine to trade back, knowing Simmons would still be available. And on top of that, they got a 5th round pick out of the deal. This is important because in this year's draft, the Chiefs had a 1st rounder, a 2nd, 2/3, a 4th, no 5th, no 6th, 100 pick gap. And then they had 3 7ths. So you then got a 5th, which is crucially important in my opinion, and they still got the guy they wanted all along. Andy Reid shared after the draft that the head trainer Rick Burkholder did a bunch of work with Simmons and said he's in a good place. The knee has healed well. He's gone through all the rechecks that the NFL has required him to do, and they're going to see where things go from here. They aren't sure if he does rookie minicamp or not at this point in time. They want to see more from him when he gets in town first, but he said this, quote, he will definitely be ready by training camp, but we'll be able to do the stuff before that. They met with him at the Combine, brought him in for one of the top 30 visits, and even had a couple Zoom visits with him as well. Apparently, they had a Zoom with him yesterday, as in Wednesday, and it was to check in on him one more time, but also see what he recalled about the playbook and their installs. Veach said he did a great job, and they liked that about him. Andy added that they were a little surprised Josh Simmons was still actually there by pick 31, then actually 32 is where they ended up grabbing him. But the injury causing him to fall made sense as to why. They were a little nervous, though, that he wouldn't be there by the time their pick actually got there. He said early they really liked how Josh Simmons and his knee looked when they brought him in to get a closer look. Rick Burkholder said he's well ahead of where he should be. There's still a rehabilitation process that needs to take place, but again, Rick said this as well. Quote, this is the best case scenario in regards to how Josh Simmons is progressing. And I know some of you are worried about getting a tackle that's coming off of a patellar tendon injury. You then had Jesse Morse. He's a doctor. He said that, hey, offensive linemen in particular, they can struggle recovering from a patellar tendon injury, saying the risk was higher for O-linemen compared to other position groups in regards to their recovery. I mean, it is worth noting that Brandon Graham, he was a D lineman, but he tore his patellar tendon in 2010 and went on to have a very quality, solid, above average NFL career. So you can recover from this and you can be a quality starter at the NFL level, and that is exactly what the Chiefs are hoping out of Josh Simmons. He was a bit undersized, sub 34-inch arms at the combine, but if you look at Dane Brugler's draft guide, he was actually over 34 inches at his pro day, so there's a bit of a discrepancy, 34 and 1/8 inch compared to 33 inches, but still, in spite of that, he was a incredible left tackle. The Amazon Next Gen Stats, their model of top value picks of round 1 has Josh Simmons being the 5th best value, and the Chiefs got him there and got a 5th round pick on top of that. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said several teams agree Josh Simmons had the best tape of any offensive tackle last year, and they aren't overly concerned with recovery on the torn patellar tendon. More of the concern is maturity, character, but I think that's why the Chiefs met with him another time on Zoom, and he kind of knew the installs, and they felt really good about that. Jeremy Fowler then said he's going to the ideal veteran-laden place. I mean, look at this. Josh Simmons allowed just 1 pressure on 152 pass blocking snaps in his injury-shortened 2024 season, and if you look at his pressure rate allowed by season, 2022, 6.1%, 2023, 3.5%, 2024, 0.7%, so he was literally getting better every single year. John Ledyard, who has a podcast called Audibles and Analytics, 57,000 followers on X for what that's worth. He said, I can't comment on Simmons' health, but he was my 6th overall player in the class, tier 1 player for me. If he's physically right, this is the steal of the draft. Dane Brugler of The Athletic had him as the 3rd best offensive tackle of this draft class, even with the injury, though we all know he fell because of the injury. I mean, he allowed just 1 sack in 13 games for the Buckeyes in 2023, and then just 1 pressure and 0 sacks in 2024 through 6 games before his knee injury. I get that there's concerns, but the Chiefs being able to get a quality starting left tackle or even right tackle, we'll see what happens with Jawan Taylor next year, for years to come in the first round. It's just hard when you're picking at the end of these rounds and they are taking a risk, a calculated risk based on how he is looking, where he's going to be able to redshirt this year. You signed Jalen Moore to a 2-year, $30 million deal. And I know some people are saying, well, they have Jalen Moore. This is a wasted pick. He's going to redshirt. It's not a wasted pick if he can turn into something quality and you have to not pay everybody on your O-line top of the market money. Creed Humphrey, already the highest paid center in the NFL. Trey Smith might become the highest paid guard in the NFL. Jawan Taylor was making $20 million a year. You had to trade away Joe Tooney, whose cap hit was $26 million. And then if you could get a left tackle after Jalen Moore's lifespan with the Chiefs, he's on a 2-year, $30 million deal. That is a big, fat W. Here's another thing about having Jalen Moore on the roster. What if he hurts his knee, ankle, calf, something in the season? Who's going to be your backup left tackle if Jalen Moore goes down? I want to hear you answer that. Say it out loud. Yeah, that's right, because it's freaking crickets. You're going to do Kingsley Suamataia and Wanya Morris again? No freaking thank you. So he's going to be ready by training camp, and then you're going to have a quality depth piece. Wanya is fine on the right side, in my opinion, to be clear, but the left side, not so much. So you're going to have a quality depth piece in Josh Simmons that should be ready to go for sure by training camp. And hopefully you won't need to start him day 1, but this was a definite need for the Kansas City Chiefs, especially from a depth perspective. If you don't like this pick, I get it because of the injury concerns, but we literally just watched Patrick Mahomes be the most hit quarterback in the 2024 NFL season, and then we just watched the Eagles literally whoop the Chiefs in Super Bowl 59 because of the O-line issues. So it's not a sexy pick, but how can you complain? I'm not saying everybody's doing that, but I'm just saying if you're complaining, how, when the most important thing right now is to protect Patrick Mahomes? Trenches win championships. If you protect Patrick Mahomes, what happens? He wins Super Bowls. Obviously, it's a team game, a team sport, I understand, but what happens if you fail to protect Patrick Mahomes? Super Bowl 55, Super Bowl 59, you get your kicked in the Super Bowl. It's quite literally that simple. Build up the trenches so the best 5 guys can go out there, or if injuries happen, you've got quality guys to fill in for them, and it's probably going to end up in another deep playoff run for the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, there are other needs. D-line, so defensive tackle, edge, you need a running back, maybe an outside receiver. those picks are going to be coming. The Chiefs have a second, 2/3, a fourth, and now they also have a fifth, and there's a lot of value in between rounds 2, 3, and the beginning of 4, per the words of Brett Veach himself. So I love the pick. No, he's not going to be a huge impactful player this year in theory, talking about Josh Simmons, but you can't hate the fact that they are trying to right the ship. And especially with Jalen Moore only being on a 2-year deal and you being able to get out of Jawan Taylor's contract after next year, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer pick. Maybe they would have went with Josh Connerly Jr. Maybe they had some other guys on their board that had a true first-round grade from them, but they were gone. So you got Josh Simmons at 32 instead of 31. It's a big old W to me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. How do you feel about the Josh Simmons pick? How concerned are you about his injury? Does it give you a little bit of encouragement knowing that Rick Burkholder and the entire Chiefs staff looked at it and he's well ahead of his recovery and he can potentially redshirt this year? Or nah, the patellar tendon injury is insane. The Chiefs should have stayed away. That's a big red flag. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts either way in the comments down below because I know it could go a little bit both ways. And until next time, tomorrow, night 2 of the NFL draft. Let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?